I'm not so sure about that. I think if you use it correctly, it can be just as engaging, and in fact, even some cases more so. Some PowerPoint do's and don'ts, because most of us use PowerPoint. You know, what do you do? What do you don't do? Now, where the rubber meets the road is units 5 and 6. What I'm actually going to get you guys to do, and because we've got 15 registered, it's going to be a bit of a squeeze, but I'm actually going to get you to present online. So basically, you're going to present to the rest of us. Obviously, it won't be a very long presentation with 15 people across 2 sessions. So we'll probably have one, 7, 1 and 8 the next, and we'll worry a bit about that when we get to it. But the idea is to present something that probably you'd present anyway. So it's a good opportunity for you to try and practice some of the things that we've learned. So basically what will happen is that we'll get you to present. I'll give you the opportunity to share your screen. You can go ahead and present. And then the idea is that I'll just do a quick round the room, and other people then can give some feedback and say, oh, well, that went really well. You could have tried this, or maybe influenced this way, or whatever it might be that we actually cover. So it's can't be any more practical than that, because giving you that opportunity to do that online will give you an opportunity to be critiqued basically by your peers and myself. And then we're done. So we've allocated 2 sessions to that, because I assumed that we'd have about 15 people in the session anyway. So we'll work out the order and all the rest of it when we get close to the event. But I guess all I'd like you to do is to start thinking about, what might you present on? And I suppose the idea would be, if we've got 60 minutes, we'll get straight into it in units 5 and 6. I'd probably give you, let's work that out. Well, it'll obviously have to be under under 10 minutes. So it'll be short and sharp. And then we'll have, say, some time, quick round the, one thing you liked about it, one thing that you'd suggest to improve it. So it'll give you some feedback on that as well. And then we're done. So I think it should be a lot of fun. So any questions about any of the logistics around the program? All right, excellent. So look, the other procedure is, what I'll do is at the end of every session, I'll send you an email like I did for today. And obviously I'll send you the link for the next session. And what I'd suggest you do is to put that into your calendar so that you don't forget it. And obviously just put the link in the calendar as well, and away you go. And we're back in there as well. And I'll also send you a copy of the slides and the recording as well for the previous session. So you'll get that from today as well. All right, so look, let me stop talking for a minute, and let me ask you guys, what is your biggest challenge presenting? Let me get a bit of a sense of where you're at, what sort of things you'd like me to cover, particularly what are the challenges that you find generally in the work that you do, and in particular in presenting. So over to you.
Sorry, I was just coming off. I'll go then. Sorry, I was coming off mute. One of the challenges that I find, not so much, well, I guess maybe related to presenting, is that sometimes I ask questions and then I just get like silence, because I think potentially I'm asking questions that relate to someone having an action that they don't want to own.
Yeah. I think this is, and of course, as you can imagine, sorry, you're coming up as a Frith. Sorry, what was your name?
Oh, sorry, it's Andrew.
G'day, Andrew. Look, I think that's a very valid issue, and of course you can be sitting there and there can be pauses and a pause and a pause, and then you end up answering your own question. You think, well, why would I even bother asking any questions, because obviously I'm not getting anything back. So I'll just park that. I suppose the short answer to that would be, don't stop asking questions. In fact, it's really important, but to just hold the line a bit and pause. And this is the problem. Sometimes we feel it when that tension rises and nothing comes back, and then we think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't go down that road. But if you don't make it interactive, it's actually not going to be as effective. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
So you have to do it. And the only way to make it interactive is to ask the open-ended questions: why, what, when, who, where, how, and which will ultimately give you more than a one-word answer. So thanks, Andrew. Anyone else?
Yeah, it's Natalie here.
Hi, Natalie.
I've found, and I've noticed it largely doing online presentations, and I'm not on camera at the moment. It's probably a good thing. I'm very theatrical with my hands, and I find half of the time I'm covering my face, and I've been really aware of it, but I still keep doing it. I don't do it in face-to-face meetings. Well, I don't think I do. Maybe I just haven't been aware of it. But yeah, definitely my hands are like going around all over the place.
Yeah. Have you had any feedback about that, or is it just something you recognise about yourself?
No, no one's. I've just noticed it a few times. I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Oh, look, I think, you're better off to be showing a bit of enthusiasm than not. But of course, you can go too far with that. And, we'll have to wait and see what you like when you present, Natalie. We'll see how you handle it. Now, you've done the Lunch and Learn program with me previously, I think.
I have, yeah.
The name rings a bell, yeah. Okay, thanks, Nat. We'll watch for that. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Tim,
Hi, it's Gabrielle.
Sorry,
Go on,
Gab.
Go, Cindy. Go.
Okay, I'll be quick. Tim, Cindy Parker here.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. I find it kind of difficult to present in anything but a fact-based and probably dry way. So I'm really looking forward to picking up some tricks about the much more inclusive attitude in presenting.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be interesting, Cindy, when you do the influencing capability profile, where you come up on that, which, I'll send you a link to that this afternoon and everything, but it'll be interesting to see where you come up. And it's probably likely that you are very, very fact-based and very rational in the way you go about what you do. That's fine. And you will really connect with people that think like you. Where it may be problematic is where you've got people that don't think like you.
Absolutely.
And and your job is to try to connect with everybody, basically, because and I can show you absolutely how to do that. So we'll cover all that. Yeah, Gabrielle.
I often have trouble putting over. I suppose I give too much information. And sometimes I think I bore the living daylights out of people because I've given them information that they don't really want to know or care about.
Yeah.
So when we give licensing, when we're talking to customers about licensing and things like that, you can just see them glaze over and like, I really don't care. And then I get nervous and then I go into like a jibber jabber.
Yeah. Look, I think the whole simplicity is the key to the whole thing, and I think that I'll give you an analogy of exactly what you're talking about. I've got an engineering friend of mine who I was spending time coaching them, and they said to me that when they sent a proposal to one of their clients, they put all of the sort of engineering, justification and everything in the proposal. I said to her, look, why don't you put that in the appendix? And really, your proposal is not about that. They're paying you because they know, well, they hope that you've got this knowledge, prerequisite knowledge. So the bottom line is they know all that. The trick is, have you got something that they need and want? And so she tried this out and it worked really well. So she parked all that at the back. So if someone wanted to get involved in all that detail, go for your life. But at the end of the day, the proposal is about you and your business. So it's slightly different online, of course, but I guess the principle's the same, is that, how is what you are presenting to other people going to help them improve their business is ultimately the question. And if it's sort of, you're not sure whether you're probably best not mention that. So that, when someone's sitting there listening, just as you are today, I mean, you're here because you want to learn how to present better. So if I start throwing in all this other stuff, it's probably not going to be very effective. So anyway, we'll get to that. Thank you. Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Yep. Lock here.
Hi,
Shy is the
Locke.
word.
We'll knock
Yeah,
that out
just
of you.
yeah, just nervous and public speaking. It's the issue. But
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, Locke, because that never leaves you. I've been presenting for 20 years, and I still get a little nervous, and it's part of the insecurity of, you know, am I going to be rejected? That's ultimately what it means. And I can tell you that the best analogy I can give you for that is everyone's got butterflies in their stomach when they present. The question is, have you got them flying in formation? In other words, can you control the nerves? And I'm going to kick off in a moment to talk about that, because I anticipated that as being an issue. But a bit of nerves isn't a bad thing. And then funnily enough, you assume that everyone else knows how nervous you are, but the truth is they don't. They don't. And in fact, you know, there's a lot of goodwill there. They don't want you to be nervous and all the rest of it. So, but anyway, I'll talk about that. But it's quite normal and it's natural, and you're exposed. Basically, you're presenting, and so why wouldn't you be a little nervous? I mean, it's quite a natural thing, really, when you think about it. But of course, it's getting the butterflies to fly in formation. So thanks, Locke. Anyone else?
Hey, Jim, I can go next. So, Karan here. One of the things that I've been encountering recently is one of our customers, right? So they're like 12 stakeholders now, and we have a meeting with them booked in on a monthly basis, and then, you know, there's a quarterly meeting as well. So they range from like half an hour for monthly and an hour for quarterly.
Yeah.
Now, what happens there is like 12 stakeholders, and they are, you know, just doing the basic math related to like just 5 minutes of information is useful for them. And 55 minutes, not so much, right? So when you're trying to go through the entire deck and you ask a specific question, you have a feeling that that guy has like slept off or just, you know, he's doing his own work and not paying attention to when I'm asking the questions. I have to like start all over again, especially that 5 minute section, just to make sure that it makes sense to him, right? So what I'm doing right now is at least split it into 2 different meetings so that there's some order to the chaos. So, you know, it's more tailor-made to those 6 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to, you know if there's a better way of dealing with that, because right now dealing with those 6 people is also turning out to be a challenge. Like, you know, the next step for me would be dealing into like four different meetings, but then there's no end to it.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. It depends on what you're presenting, and of course, as you point out, I mean, there's going to be different sort of knowledge thresholds in the room and all of that sort of thing. It's always the complication of presenting to a group of people, and I always think you're better off having several short meetings than you are one big long meeting to get everything done, because everyone's busy and they get frustrated and all the rest of it. But I mean, you can't spend your life online either. It's a balancing act. So let's see how you go when you're presenting in sessions 5 and 6. And I think it's actually a good thing that I'm only giving you about 5 minutes. Basically, it means you have to put a lot of stuff into 5 minutes. So, and you're going to have to work. I think part of the trick is to work out what not to talk about rather than what to talk about. Everyone can, you know, work out some of the things that they need to obviously convey, but sometimes it's hard to let go of certain things. So, and then of course you've got the issue about your audience. Is there something else that they need that maybe a little bit of maybe it might be a little bit of preparation beforehand to find out exactly what people are needing and wanting. But then again, the other side of it is people don't know what they don't know either. You know, so if you said to someone, what are you looking for? They may not know because they don't really know all the parameters of what's there. So it's tricky, but as a principle, I'd say shorter and more meetings rather than one massive big meeting to try and get everything conveyed in the one session. It works quite well that way. Anyone else? All right, folks. Well, it sounds like I'm in the right room. So let's launch into, I'm going to talk about controlling nerves to start with. I'm going to talk about content today, and then I'm going to talk about delivery. So it's really going to give us an overview of the topic, and then of course we'll break bits and pieces off as we go. So how do we control nerves? I guess the first thing we've got to say to ourselves and be honest with ourselves is, what is making us nervous? You know, what are the things that we're telling ourselves? And as you can see on your screen, there's a few things there that are fairly typical things of what people will say to themselves when they're presenting to a group of people perhaps they don't know, or maybe they do know. So sometimes it's good just to sort of capture, well, what is this that I'm actually telling myself? Because sometimes it's good to be aware of that. That's a good starting point. Otherwise, it's just, I'm very nervous and I don't know why. Well, sometimes it's good to, so for example, if it says, if you're telling yourself, look, I don't want to embarrass myself, well, the antidote to that, of course, would be to do a little bit more preparation to make sure that everything's going to run like clockwork. You know, or I might let other people down. So why might you think that? What is the reason for that? And just think, well, why am I actually a little nervous about this? Is a very good starting point. And then I guess using looking at things through different lenses. So for example, opportunity is nowhere, opportunity is nowhere, opportunity is now here. It is just depending on how you look at things sometimes to make a difference. And I often think that, you know, look, take an analogy of a job interview. I've got some clients that I work with who, you know, they bomb job interview after job interview. And I say to them, well, what are you saying to yourself before? And they say, well, I'm going to stuff up. And I said, well, that's the starting point. If you think that, then you've already programmed your brain to make that work. Now, the good news about that is if you actually say to yourself, this is going to go really, really well, then you're getting well, you've still got to do the preparation, of course. You've still got to do everything that's required and answer the questions and prepare. And it's the same with the presentation. So talking yourself up rather than talking yourself down is actually a very smart strategy, because talking yourself down is no more logical than talking yourself up. You know, it's just a myth. You're just psyching yourself out, and you can psych yourself in as well. So I think that's a very important point. So thinking to yourself, this is going to go really well, is a good starting point. And prepare like a champion. I mean, the best way to make these things work is to prepare. You know, do the preparation, get your slides right, think carefully about how you're going to present. I think that, you know, let's say that you've got 6 people in the room and there's you, and you've got, let's say an hour, let's just pick a number, 6 people in a room, an hour. That's an incredible opportunity. And so you've got 6 people to influence or to you know, educate or whatever it is that you might be doing. And I've got an hour. That's worth investing serious amount of time getting right. So don't be afraid to put in the preparation, because preparation will often give you confidence in the end. Focus on your breathing. And of course, what happens is when we get a little bit nervous, we stop breathing, or don't stop breathing, that'd be no good. But, but what happens is that our breathing gets very shallow. So just be conscious of taking a deep breath and just being in the moment. Is really a very, you know, it sounds so basic, it's probably not worth talking about, but it is, because physiologically what happens is that when you're nervous, you're actually not breathing to the extent that you should be. So that's obviously a good thing to do. So we've got mental preparation, we've got physical preparation, we've got obviously psychological preparation as well. And then just mentally rehearse. And I've just touched on this before. Just actually think about it going well. Just imagine it going well. Pride yourself on making it go well. I'm sure that many of you here have got a great pride in the way you present. So just get really good at it. Just make a decision right now that I'm just going to get good at this no matter what. Because you can be. It's just like any other skill that you've learnt, but you've got to have the right mindset, otherwise it won't work. I mean, for example, I hear people saying, I'm no good at presenting, or I'm no good at job interviews, or I'm no good at this. Well, the moment you start talking like that, then obviously you're behind the 8 ball immediately, even though it's not actually factually true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. By saying I'm no good at something and then proving that I'm no good at it, you've now closed the loop to demonstrate conclusively to yourself you're no good at it. And so you can assume that you're actually right all along. So you've actually got to change that significantly. So are there any questions about nerves? I mean, there's a few things there, but I think preparation's critical, talking it up, imagining that it's going well. Think about this situation tomorrow in the United States. They've got this debate, right? They're on the stage for 90 minutes, two people. It is pretty much the leader of the free world, and quite frankly, the decision to, put aside voters for a minute, if one of them doesn't go well, it could be the end of their chances of becoming president. Now, that's a lot of pressure. I can guarantee they wouldn't be sitting around thinking, oh, woe is me, I don't think this is going to go well. They'd be doing significant preparation despite what they'd be saying publicly. And I can assure you they'd be visualising it going very well. And then the cards will fall where they fall. So any questions about that?
Nothing.
All good? Okay, let's keep moving. So now I'll just talk a little bit about the content. So here's some stats that there are more than 400 million users of PowerPoint in the world, right? Take it a step further. There are 4 million presentations every single day on one of those. 1 million presentations per hour, right? So I'm making a point here. Most of them are completely unbearable. Okay, so obviously you don't want to be one of those that are giving an unbearable presentation. So that's what I say. People sort of tune into these things, and in their own way, it's like meetings. Most of the meetings we go to are dead, dull, and boring. There's no actual reason why they should be, actually, except for the fact that that's just the way things are done. But we don't have to be like that. We can actually have a different decision, a different mindset about that. And I think that's my point about that. So remember, the presentation is not the PowerPoint. It's actually you. You're the presentation. The knowledge that you've got, the way you manage yourself, the way you ask questions, you are it. The PowerPoint is just there to support you. It's not there. It is not the presentation. Okay, that doesn't mean you don't put any work into the PowerPoint, but the bottom line is you are the presentation. And you can see that what I'm trying to do here is to model some of the behavior that I'm expecting is that, we keep the slides nice and simple, just one sort of bit of information on each slide. Don't get carried away. And just remember that ultimately this is about the audience. It's not about you. And ultimately the audience, whoever they are, whether it's one person or several people, ultimately it is them. That's what you're presenting for. And I think that sounds so obvious when we're sitting here talking about it, but at the end of the day, often we don't think like that. How often have you been to a presentation? It's been a very much speaker-centric presentation. It is all about the audience. So ask questions, engage them, find out what they're after, and of course that can go a little long. One of the ways of actually dealing with that, by the way, and I know there was a question about that before, is that if you want to do a Q&A, just say, look, for 5 minutes, let's have a Q&A. So you've actually put a time limit on it. And if, of course, it gets close to the time of 5 minutes, you can say, okay, we'll better move on. But you've already set the marker in the sand, and that can be very, very helpful there as well. But remember, it's all about the audience, and they are the ones that need to be captivated. That, at the end of the day, is the critical point about all of this, and not captive, right? So if they're captive and not captivated, then obviously that's a problem. So we're wanting to get them completely engaged in this. Now the mindset might be, oh no, not another presentation, and here we go. And so their expectations about what's going to happen are probably quite low. But I think not because of you, but because they go to so many, they're involved in so many every single day. So what you need to do, of course, is completely change that. And you can do that very quickly in terms of using some of the things that we're talking about here today. So focus on your audience. What do they need? And this is important. I think you'd probably be able to answer that question pretty confidently, but don't make too many assumptions about it. Check to see. And so, for example, if I was going to give a presentation tomorrow, and it is for this one too, I will contact somebody in Insight, and I will find out a little bit about what you do and how you like to operate, and what are some of the challenges you face. I did that because it only took me 20 minutes, but I did it because I needed to know. And I thought it was courtesy also for you as the audience, for me to not just come in and spruik whatever I wanted to spruik. So that's important as well. It's not what you know that's important, actually, despite the fact that you may think that's the case. It's not what you know. It's really, what's the old saying? It's not, people don't care how much you know until they know you care. Ultimately, it's about whether or not you're there giving good service to your clients is ultimately what it's about, not what you know. It's not about that, okay? And look, Natalie talked about using her hands a lot, but look, at the end of the day, if you're not excited about what you're saying, you can be darn sure that the other people aren't going to be too excited about it. So, show a bit of enthusiasm, because ultimately the level of enthusiasm you show will rub off on the audience. And of course, I mean, you're not going to be bouncing off the walls with excitement, but at the end of the day, you don't want them falling asleep or tapping on an email or something like that. You want them to be engaged. So I think, err on the side, if you're more introvert than extrovert, err on the side of being a little bit more demonstrative, all right? And I wouldn't say if you're an extrovert, tone it down, but it's better to tone it up than to tone it down as far as just enthusiasm in terms of what you're doing. All right, so
just one question on that.
Please.
I think sometimes I get maybe a little bit over enthusiastic, and I talk really fast as well.
Yeah, well,
fast talking and like hands.
Try to use pauses, Natalie, if possible. Take a breath and stop, and don't worry, someone will fill the pause in. It'll either be you or them, so just relax. It's so interesting, isn't it? You go to a barbecue and there's two people who don't know each other are standing side by side, and there's nothing in the conversation. All of a sudden someone says something dumb just to fill the gap. So we're so terrified of this whole notion of silence. Silence is actually a very powerful tool to use. So you can speak quickly. It's better to probably be fairly enthused in what you're saying, as long as you stop and draw breath every now and again. I think that is more important than whether you speak quickly or not. But thank you for sharing. We'll certainly be monitoring you on Unit 5 and 6. You might like to go first. Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Natalie. Anyone else?
How do you stop saying
Just don't say it. Look, can I tell you? Look, it's a really, really good question, because a lot of people do it. Here's the best way to do it. Here's the best way to do it. It just changed me completely. You can say one every now and again, but you don't want to be saying too many. The best way to do it, next time you present, ask somebody at, wherever, to tune in and to count your ums. Just, I want you to sit there, not your clients, of course. I know. Just find someone that one of your colleagues, perhaps in this program, and just say, right, I just want you to sit there and I want you to count the number of ums that I actually make during the course of this presentation. Now, when you get the number at the end of it, you'll be embarrassed and it'll just remind you that you probably, it's a conscious thing, because is filling a space. A space is better than an So just get into the habit of not doing it, because doing it is a habit. So undoing it it's not difficult, because I can hear you're very articulate. It's not like you need to There's no reason for you to do that. In fact, there's no reason for anybody to but we do because it's habitual. And sometimes if we're not aware of how often we're doing it, we will, we'll just continue to do it and find out later that when we get some negative feedback about it. So just get someone to count it. Seriously.
Okay.
You'll be surprised and you'll go, I had this happen. I went and joined Toastmasters years ago. And in this program, they actually did that. They actually get you to count, not me, because I'm giving the presentation, but they actually got someone to count all my ums. And I was absolutely staggered when I found out. And I just thought, oh, that's obviously something that I need to stop. The fact that you're aware of it's great. Now it's the next step is to actually just stop yourself doing it, as I try to do. But every now and again we occasionally do that.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hey Tim, it's Cindy again.
Hi Cindy.
I know that I would love to make my presentations more captivating. I would love that. We deal with a profession and I guess a specialty that is, I don't know, it makes watching paint dry look really exciting. So it's hard to imagine how I can make a presentation session that might consist of a report, much along the lines of what Karan talked about before. Our reporting, regular reporting, which is about as much as presentation practice as we normally get in our roles, that kind of presentation is all about presenting fact, trying to make it hit home, trying to be professional and trying to convey a really reassuring sense to our customers that they've engaged the right people. So it's hard to imagine what tricks and what kind of techniques can be used to actually get the audience that might range from a CIO through to a, some license assignment or the help desk, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to imagine how to really get them wrapped in what I'm saying.
Okay,
and still remain professional, because that's the key for me.
Yes, I understand that it's not all about gimmicks and everything else, and it's all very well. I can put up some pretty pictures and things, and I get that. I think hang in there. I think what I'm going to do is I'd like to ask you that question. What have you got from, not just today, obviously, but, the whole program? I'll guarantee there'll be some things that'll pop up and you go, I could use that, or I could see how that would fit in. So just be on the lookout for some things. I don't know enough about what you do to be giving you sort of technical advice about that, but I think at the end of the day, there will be something that'll resonate. Maybe it might be the way it's presented, or I'm not sure. I'd have to, and it'll, maybe one of these presentations that you give could be one of those that we can talk to you about as well. So hang in there. I can't give you an answer directly about that, but I think there will be something that'll resonate and you'll go, that's great, I could use that, because I'll be throwing so much at you, something will bound to be.
Something's bound to stick.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, I think many of us have got dry things that we have to present on, and we've got to try and sort of think, well, how can we make that a little bit more interesting? And because you're in your own world as well, it's difficult to be able to step back and have a look at it in a different way. So that's another opportunity that others might be able to give you some feedback on as well.
Thanks, Tim.
No worries. Anyone else?
No, I just wanted to say I echo Cindy's thoughts, right? So great point, Cindy. So, what I'm personally trying to get out of this is, something that is really relatable to what we do. And as Cindy mentioned, 95% of what we do is present facts. So our presentations, and obviously we'll be happy to, present that and make you have a look at those as well. It's mostly like graphs and pie charts. And it's all facts, right? It's not like we're selling a product that could be really gimmicky or really flashy. It's all presenting facts. It is a bit dry to somebody who's not involved in the process. But
Yes.
of course, if somebody who is, they are happy to get those facts. But yeah, for somebody,
Right.
joining the meeting for the first time might be really dry, right? So something that we can use for those kind of meetings where we're just presenting facts, not selling something, it's not sales, no marketing. It's just presenting facts,
Yes.
a lot of bar graphs, a lot of pie charts,
Yes.
stuff around that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Leave it with me. We won't be able to do anything directly about that at the moment, but I think as we go through, I'm sure something will catch so as we go. Look, let's talk about content. And I think when you're presenting content to a group of people, I think there are 4 rules. Be clear, make it simple, make it progressive. And what I mean by progressive is going from one point to the next. So there's a logical sequence, and make sure there's some degree of consistency about the way it's presented. They're the 4 golden rules. So let's look at each of those very briefly. So clear means it's clear to the audience, not clear to you. And remember, if you're presenting technical information, whilst it might be perfectly clear to you because you deal with it regularly, somebody in the audience, it may not. And of course, if you ask people, is it clear? Often people will say, yes, it is, when they just don't want to appear as if they don't know what you're talking about. So be conscious to make it clear. There is a real skill in making something difficult simple rather than making something simple difficult. Isn't that interesting? A lot of people make lots of simple things very, very complicated, but actually the real skill in communication is to make a complex topic simple and clear. And this is a bit of a skill set. And when you read, I'm sure if you're reading something that's you're reading something technical, it staggers me, for example, how complicated academics make things when they explain things, when they could just simply explain it clearly. And I find that absolutely fascinating. So how can I make this clear? How can I make it simple? So simple doesn't mean talking down to people, of course. Simple means that there is a simple logic to it, an explanation as to why. I don't put massive amounts of information on one slide that's just going to bamboozle people. I'm making simple points. You're better off having a lot of slides with a few things on each or one idea on each rather than 3 slides that are highly complicated. So nice and simple. The other thing is it's got to be a progression. The best way to actually start this is what I did is at the beginning, in your beginning of your presentation, what I suggest you do is you say there are 3 things I want to cover or 2 things I want to cover today, and actually literally have a slide on what they are so that the other person can see the progression from one thing to the next. So they've already given them the scaffolding, if you like, and so they can then make those steps from one thing to the next as you go. Otherwise, they don't know where you're taking them. And that can be very frustrating. So gives some degree of progression in your, and consistency means that consistency in the presentation, consistency in the explanations, and make sure that because people want consistency, otherwise they get confused. So if you spend 1 minute on one point and then 5 minutes on another, that's not necessarily consistent unless you said to the person, well, I'm only going to spend 1 minute on this, I spend 5 on this because it's important. So just be consistent, and these are the rules of engagement, if you like. So looking at a presentation design, let's actually look at how that might look. It should be simple. It should contain less points per slide, right? There should contain less font styles, and you don't have to go overboard with any of this stuff. And clip art, well, I know some people quite enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it can be distracting because there's a message on the screen, there's a bit of clip art, and people are looking at the clip art trying to work out the significance of it when in actual fact the message was something else. So just go easy on that. So simple
Excuse me,
presentation.
excuse me, Tim.
Yep.
We have corporate slides when we're
Right.
presenting to customers. So we've been given, I guess, a pre-made
Okay.
deck.
Righto. Yeah.
We can pick and choose depending upon what the topic might be,
Yeah.
but it's trying to keep the same message delivered by myself or say Luke or
Okay.
Emil when we're presenting what insight should be. So a lot of those are
Right.
preambled, pre-made, preconceived topics. Some of them are really, really busy.
I wonder whether, the fact that your organisation is invested in this program, albeit there's only 15 of you, I'm wondering if this might be a bit of a catalyst for change, because I understand what's going on there. They're wanting everyone to have the same information and present the same information. I get that. But unfortunately, that stifles some of the things that we've been talking about. So, I find that I can't really present very well when I'm given information that I can't manipulate. And so I'm actually working on my 10th book at the moment, and I'm talking about the concept of job crafting. Job crafting is where you can actually change your job to better reflect who you are. And it's a similar principle that what happens in most cases with jobs is that we give people a cookie cutter type of, this is you, this is, whoever the job holder is, this is you. So what you're saying is an extension of that. That concerns me greatly in the sense that, okay, I understand consistency and I understand all that, but what that means is, of course, that it's not totally your slide, is it? It's, in other words, you're going to see it and look at it perhaps critically based on some of the things we've talked about. So I wonder if we could use that as a catalyst for change. I don't know, maybe I'm being too ambitious. But I mean, I think it'd be great.
Shoot for the stars.
Yeah, but I think, if a lot of your work is actually on working with clients presenting, then it makes sense that that's where the effort and the energy should be put not just in doing it, but actually in preparing it as well. Anyway, I can have a talk to some of your people at the end of this as well, but I wasn't aware of that. I appreciate you telling me that. So probably these extra slides are a little redundant because you can't do much about it. But anyway, you can perhaps at least critique it and say, does it fit these things? You don't want too much text, right?
Agree. Okay.
Because there's nothing worse than looking at a page of bullet points. It's nothing worse. It's just like people go, so less text and more meaning. So I'm just sharing some of the principles, and then perhaps you can look at your own material and think, well, does it fit that bill? So let's just finish up now. We've got a few minutes left. Other questions, other comments? Thanks very much, Gabriel, for mentioning that to me, because I think that's useful for me to know that.
I just have a quick, I guess, question and comment. With some of the presentations that we deliver, often we're sending that content out to the customer as well. So I think that's why there's often more information in the pack than we might necessarily speak to in the presentation.
Yeah.
Would you recommend having two different versions of the pack? One that we would send out with more information, and then a different one that we would deliver that has less text on the screen? What do you recommend when we have to send the client more information?
I think you can send them as much as you like, but I think when they're presenting on the screen, simplify it. Yeah, absolutely. So obviously not everything that goes in the pack should be presented, because not everything is relevant at that time. But look, let's be honest about it. In a lot of cases, they don't really look at it much anyway. I mean, people, at the end of the day, I think I'd be more inclined to get the presentation right online, reduce the content, streamline it. And then, of course, if I'm in full flight, I might say to the person or persons, I might say, look, there are some other slides that I'll be sending you or have sent you in your slide pack. I'm not covering them at this stage, but you will get those, or you have got those. I'm also of the view, and I'd be interested to hear whether there are any constraints that you have around this. I'm also of the view of sending them out after, not before. I don't know whether people really look at it. But even if they do look at it, sometimes what they do is they'll have preconceived ideas of, this doesn't look like it's worth attending, or I don't know what they might be thinking. But what do people think about that? I mean, are you constrained to send it out beforehand, or can you send it out after?
It all depends on the customer, I guess,
Right.
and the client. I mean, some of them often will say to you, what's your agenda? What will you be covering? I've got, 13 people attending. This is what they're expecting. I was always taught to send an agenda to the people that you are presenting to ensure that if there was something missing, that they could address it prior to the meeting, which they never look at only one person ever looks at the agenda anyway.
Yeah.
But that's, I was always told, I was always, that was part of my, if you haven't got a reason for going to a meeting, then don't have a meeting.
Yeah, look, I think and it's also showing courtesy, because it means that you're actually showing that you're preparing, and obviously it gets back to this thing about, it's all about the audience, it's not about you. So I think the principle is fine. And sometimes, a phone call can be good. Just preparing for tomorrow's meeting, I just want to make sure that I've covered all bases. This is what I'm intending to cover. Is there anything else?
I agree with Gab, because like often some of the stuff that we present is like financial risk or costs to the business, and sometimes we'll work directly with senior stakeholders or maybe kind of technical people, application owners, and then when we go to do a final presentation to the senior executives, they just want to make sure that they're across what we're presenting, just so there's nothing unexpected that causes a problem in the meeting.
Yes. So you've got to, it's again knowing your audience and knowing what they might be interested in, and working out how you might tailor it towards the audience as such. So I like the idea of agenda. I like the idea of checking with them, and of course a senior executive, remember they're interested in risk. They're interested in the big picture, and they should be making the assumption that other people will be across the details. So therefore, I just want to know what the general thrust of what's going on is. So you can easily fall into the trap. I'm on a board of a university, and we often have presentations. People come in and give these presentations to the board, and we're bombarded with information. It's a 3.5-hour meeting, and people will come in and they will just absolutely get right down to the weeds. And frankly, I don't want to know all about that, because my job there is just to make sure, as an individual on the board, that the university is running effectively. So I just, if I want that information, I'll ask for it, and people sometimes do. So yeah, it's all about the audience. Find out what the audience wants, I think. Thanks, Andrew. Anyone else? All right, now folks, what I want to do here is just talk about a quick couple of other things. Delivery, your appearance, how you, whether you wave your hands around or whatever, general body movement, whatever. Clear and enthusiastic, no ums, there you go. There's the ums. No pause, use pauses, change your volume if possible, no monotone if possible. Sometimes it's easier for people other than that. But just look, if you're engaged and enthusiastic about your topic, then most of this other material will fall in its place. I think that's my main key point there, as far as that's concerned. Make sure you've got your dress appropriately for the occasion. I know it sounds a bit strange, but you can, there you go, I did a num. I've got shorts on today, so I don't need to have long pants on, but I've certainly got a shirt on, and that's a help, and it makes things a little bit more professional, as you can imagine. Natural facial expressions, you don't want to be contrived, you've got to be comfortable and all the rest of it. You might also notice, folks, I don't know whether you've noticed, I'm standing up Now, I don't know about you. I've got a stand-up desk. You may not. I find a stand-up desk brilliant for a lot of reasons. But I actually find that if you present standing up, you're a lot more engaged. You're a lot more in the moment. And I think it's part of the deal. So have a think about that. If there is provision for you, I mean, to do that, I would probably consider doing that. I think stand-up presentations will often go a lot better.
Isn't that a bit weird when you're sitting around a boardroom table and you've got 10 other people around a boardroom and you decide to stand up?
Oh, you mean as in you're actually physically
there, yeah.
Oh, I think if you've got, look, I still look, if you say 10 people, I'd still stand up. If
Okay.
if it was reduced to about 2 or 3, yes, I'd start to say that looked a bit silly.
Okay.
But I think with 10, it shows courtesy that, you know, you're on your feet, you're presenting, and I'm going. It's like someone, if you're chairing a meeting, the best place to sit is at the head of the table, because that's where you can visually see everyone and people expect that. I think with a presenter, it's probably right to do that. I often will say to people, and you're right, I've got to remind myself we're talking about physical presentations as well. I'll often ask people, do you mind if I sit? And people will say, that's fine. So you can check about that as well. But I think if I've got 10 people in the room, it's probably fair to stand up. I'm just alert, I'm on my feet, I'm a little bit more in the moment, I guess, which makes a difference to me. Good eye contact, obviously. And now be careful with this, because sometimes people have got their camera over here and they're looking over there. Just try and get all of that technology stuff sorted, because, and it's sometimes it's hard to do, but like I'm making eye contact with you now, I suppose, or it looks that way. But if I'm looking over here, it's not great. So just the same principles, obviously, face to face as well. Make eye contact with people. I think the rule of thumb is, when you're in a room with a group of people, you make a conscious effort to make eye contact with every single person. Obviously, if there are thousands, that's not possible. We've got 10 people in the room. Try to actually make eye contact with all 10 at some point. Then they all feel they're part of the show. And that's important. Get ready to be flexible. Now, if you're going to open up for questions, you're going to get some interesting questions, and you've got to be prepared for that. And I think the answer often, if you don't know, is to say, I'll investigate it and get back to you. So don't feel as if you've got to be this incredible expert knowing every answer to every question. The fact of the matter is, if you're put on the spot and you don't know, you're better off saying, I'll check it out for you and I'll come back to you. Now, provided, of course, you do go back to them, there'll be no problem with that. Now, if you did that for every single question, of course, it'd be looking a bit silly, but of course you wouldn't need to do that. So if you don't know, just let them know, I'll check it out and get back to you, if that's okay with you, is a perfectly reasonable question to ask. But make sure you answer them as well as you can. Don't do the politician thing and go all over the place, because this isn't politics. They're paying you to give them some feedback and expert advice, and they expect you to have some answers. And if you can't get the answers, then find them and come back to them, if that makes sense. So do always have a Q&A in your presentation, always, because if you don't do that, you'll find that people will be disengaged. And this is one of the influencing strategies to engage people. So things that they never work perfectly the first time. Trust me, I think the message I'm trying to say here is rehearse. Rehearse means make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row, you've got it all right, you're all confident about what you're presenting. So when the unknown hits you, and it will during a presentation, you're quite okay, because you've pretty much got a foundation there to work from. So yes, now you might say, did I rehearse for today? I spent quite a bit of time putting in effort for today. I've been doing this stuff for 20 years. But I just find that it just gives me a sense of confidence that, you know, I'm going to get through the material and we're going to cover certain things. And so don't be, you know, I think it's time well invested, actually. And I think it's just because you know the technical content, it's also about the way it's presented as well that needs to be considered. And the old thing that Ben Franklin said, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And that's pretty much the case, I think, in most instances. So preparation is critically important. So folks, what I'm going to do is this afternoon, I'm going to send out to you a copy of a link to the slides, a link to the recording. I'm also going to send you out a link to the influencing capability profile. Now, Natalie and a few others, you may have done this. Have you done this before, this influencing capability profile?
I feel like I have, yeah.
Yeah, well,
this was in the leaders one that we did, yeah?
That's right. So
yeah.
obviously you don't need to do it. So what all you need to do is to drag it out from wherever it is. Remember, it's an electronic thing, and if you can't find it, just let me know. I can send you another copy. But the idea is, now this, for those of you, you could get by with not doing this. I'm suggesting to you might like to do this, that it's a good idea, because when we come back in 2 weeks' time, the idea will be that I'll debrief you on that, but more from the point of view of presenting. So how do you be more influential? How do you be more persuasive? How do you have an impact online and or face-to-face, depending on what the circumstances are? And this is the springboard to help us with that. So that'll be the homework, and I'll send some more material out about that shortly. And next time we meet, which is Unit 2, we'll be going through influencing to get buy-in. So the focus will be very much on that. And you can see that I've purposely left about 2 weeks between each session. So any last things before we wrap up on our first session?
I got a power surge just a second ago. Did I miss much? Sorry.
I don't know how long it went for. I was just talking about
Sorry.
the preparation. Did you get that part? I was talking
Yep,
about.
I got that. No, that's fine. Yeah, rehearse. Yes.
Yeah, and I was simply making the point for homework that I'll be sending you a link to the influencing capability profile, and just to do
perfect.
that. Yeah, you'll get that.
Okay, sorry everybody. Thank you.
No, that's all good. Anyone else? All right. Well, thanks, folks. We're off to a start. So we'll catch up in a fortnight. And if you've got any questions that come to mind between sessions, you've got my email address, or you will have it, or you should have it, but you'll get it again. I'll send something out to you. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the afternoon, and we'll catch up in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you. See you.
Thanks, Tim.
Super. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.